Now, if you're watching this video, I'm going to assume that you need to replace your window well covers, and you found by going to Lowe's or Home Depot that they can be actually pretty expensive. Now, while there are some cheaper ones that are kind of made of a hard plastic, they don't fit most bigger well covers, and the sturdier metal ones that expand to fit larger sizes can be $100 a piece and even more. So with that, in today's video, I'll be covering a DIY approach to make a wooden set of window well covers to cover these up. Now, the ones that we're working with here are 53 inches wide by 24 inches deep, and I've got 3 of this size around the house, as well as a 4th one that is also 53 inches wide by 3 feet deep. So with that, let's go take a look at the supplies that we'll be using for the video. Alright, so for the project, we're going to be keeping this one really simple and straightforward. I'll show you a quick design in a minute, but what are going to be using are a series of 1x4 treated lumber, as well as some 2x4s to reinforce and connect the set. We're also using 2-inch treated nails for wood-to-wood applications. That way they'll withstand the time outdoors as well. Now, in addition to these supplies, it'll be really helpful to have a circular saw or perhaps even a handsaw, as well as a set of sawhorses for the cutting. Now, before we jump into cutting the materials, here's a look at what I'm planning for how we're going to build this. So inside of the well here, we're going to have the 2 inside vertical runners that will sit underneath that are formed by the 2x4s, and screwed on top of them will be the horizontal runners using our 1x4s that progressively get thinner and thinner as we get towards the front of the well. So that is the top-down view. Now, looking at these covers from the end, what we'll see here, and this is looking straight down the runners, is that for each of the boards that are nailed in line, that would be the 1x4 that we're looking at right there. And then for the 2 runners that would be nailed underneath, these would be the 2x4s. So you can see that because these are underneath, these will sit flush, and all of the 1x4s, be they 4 or 5 of these kind of in a row, will sit across the top of it. So we're going to start by cutting down the 2x4s. These will be used as these vertical runners that connect all of the 1x4s spanning across the top of the window well. Now, 3 of the window wells are 24 inches deep, so I'll cut these to 22 inches deep, so that way they can fit down on the inside of the well and sit flush across the cover. The 4th one that is 36 inches deep, I will cut down also with 2 inches to spare as well. I've already made one cut that's already got one down to 22 inches, so I'll just simply measure from the end and use this as a quick jig here, since these cuts don't need to be too precise, to mark off where the additional cuts will come as well. Alright, so there we go. I've got all of our vertical runners cut. As you can see, I just simply did this with a handheld circular saw, since there's not a great need for precision, and I also don't have a table saw, so you can see many of these projects are easily done without a lot of fancy tools here as well. Alright, so it started to rain outside, so we had to move indoors to the garage here. Now, what you can see in terms of how I'm going to build up the frame is I'm going to have these 2 2x4 runners that will go on the underside that are cut just inside the depth of the window well. And these will be spaced out, and then across the front lip, there'll be a little bit of an overhang of one shorter piece of 1x4, and the same on the back lip. And I'll go ahead and space in other pieces as well to kind of create that even spacing, so that way things can't easily fall through, or at least not all the way to hit the bottom of the well. And then we'll kind of take this and we'll cut the edges to kind of create that circular, nicer looking beveled effect there. Alright, so to begin assembling, I'm going to start with the back edge first. I'm going to let it overhang by 1 inch with the 2x4s underneath spaced out by 24 inches. I'm just going to go ahead and do 1 screw to kind of hold it in place, so that way we can get the front or the back portion in as well as the front to make sure it's squared up before we fully lock it in with more screws here. Alright, so before we get much further, let's go ahead and test fit this to make sure it works. As you can see on the back of this, I've just got the front and back edge with those 1-inch lips to help kind of catch these different edges here. So let's go ahead and do a quick test fit on this to make sure that it roughly fits in before we get too much further along here. So with that, pretty good. That'll work. All right, now for the remaining ones, I'm just going to eyeball these so that they're roughly spaced out. Then notice that I'm sticking with the same length for the intermediate two, and then when we place this in the grate, I'll trace it out to kind of round off their corners so there's not as much sticking out for the overhang there. As with any project, we hit a little minor snafu, and that is that for one of these, it doesn't quite fit down inside its grate. Now what I've done here to accommodate without having to undo everything is just simply set the depth on my circular saw here to just under 2 inches, and I'm just barely taking off the corner here, and then using a screwdriver with a flat head to kind of poke out or whittle out this little bottom piece, but much easier to do that than trying to unscrew and restart over. Okay, so we can see that it's fitting on great. Now what I'm going to go, just to go ahead and clean this up, and you certainly don't have to, is try to cut it down just using a straight edge to leave about 1 inch on all of these horizontal runners here. Kind of cutting it in at an angle so that way it won't be certainly rounded, but it'll be a little bit cleaner looking than it currently is. All right, there we go. Just took off a little bit of the edges. Far from perfect, but good enough. And certainly good enough to keep this little guy from falling in. Right, Trip? Yes, you. All right, so there we go. Took about 2 hours here. For about $100, we built all 4 of the different window well covers of kind of varying sizes. Now, obviously you can buy these a little bit faster, but it just costs a lot more to kind of get it at Home Depot. So with that, if you do want kind of more detailed instructions, I'll put a link below down in the description. If you did find this video helpful, make sure to give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. And with that, I gotta go ahead and get cleaned up before my wife yells at me.